What if I told you that everything you thought was a coincidence was actually part of a greater pattern, that the shaking of nations, the unraveling of economies, the storms, the tragedies, the unrest, all of it, was not random but intentional? What if the events you're seeing unfold right now were actually echoes of ancient times, repeating themselves with eerie precision in the modern world? There are moments when history doesn't just rhyme, it returns. And when it returns, it does so with clarity for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. The signs are all around us, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered, waiting to be recognized. The world doesn't want to see the signs. It explains them away, dismisses them as cycles, political tension, or natural disasters. But beneath the surface, there's something far deeper at work, a pattern stretching back thousands of years. It is the pattern of nations blessed, nations warned, and nations judged. In ancient times, when a nation turned away from the ways of God, certain signs would appear, harbingers, warnings. They were messages calling the people to return, to wake up, to remember who they were and who they were meant to be. These warnings weren't always understood at first. They were subtle, symbolic. They took the form of physical events. A breach in security, a falling tree, a building rising in defiance, all carrying spiritual significance. To the untrained eye, it looked like coincidence, but to those who sought truth, it was a revelation. And now, in our day, these same signs have appeared once again, not in ancient Israel, but in a modern superpower. A nation that once dedicated itself to God, that once placed His name on its foundations. A nation that has slowly drifted away, and so the signs return. The ancient harbingers are manifesting again, warning of judgment, calling for repentance, speaking through events that demand attention. But this time, something is different. This time, the message is not hidden in dusty scrolls or confined to scholarly texts. This time, it has been brought to life in a way never before seen. The message once spoken is now visible. The warnings that once echoed through prophets and pulpits have now found new form, graphically revealed, drawn out in vivid color, made real through powerful imagery. Why now? Because we live in a visual generation. A generation that must see to believe. A generation that is captivated not just by words, but by pictures, emotion, drama, and so the mystery, the warning, the harbingers themselves have taken on a new form. Not to entertain, not to amuse, but to wake up a people on the edge, to pull back the veil and reveal that which has always been there. A divine alarm sounding in a language this culture can no longer ignore. Because the shaking is not over, the warnings have not ceased, and the question remains whether anyone is listening. The message is no longer just a collection of ancient symbols or cryptic references buried in forgotten scriptures. It has been reborn, translated into a form that penetrates beyond intellect and enters the realm of the heart and soul. What was once only spoken in sermons and books has now become visible, tangible, and impossible to ignore. The prophetic voice has not been silent. It has simply changed the language. Now the harbingers have taken on new life, brought forth not only in words, but in images, drawn with intention, shadowed with meaning, and infused with the very essence of the life. This is not about fantasy. It is not about fiction. It is about spiritual unveiling. Mysteries are revealed, they are no longer hidden. Now they are laid bare on every page, every channel, every surface. The Harbinger graphic novel is more than a chapter. It is a prophetic encounter rendered in visual form. What once required deep study can now be seen with the eyes. The falling of the sycamore, the defiant tower, the utterance of ancient vows of judgment, all of it made real through story and illustration. It is as though prophecy has stepped out of the shadows and into full daylight. We live in an age of noise, distraction, and digital immersion. People scroll past truth, they tune out the spoken word, but something happens when truth is visualized. When you are drawn into a scene, when you look into the eyes of characters shaped by destiny, when you feel the weight of the moment not through reading alone but through seeing, it becomes real. The graphic novel form breaks down the barrier between ancient history and modern mind. It places the viewer inside the unfolding narrative suddenly the harbingers aren't just historical echoes. They are warnings spoken directly to you. The power of this visual revelation lies in its ability to awaken those who will otherwise remain asleep. It does not whisper, it confronts, it does not merely inform and stirs, it convicts and compels. You are not simply watching a story unfold. You are being invited into it, drawn into the mystery, shown what others have missed. It's no longer enough to hear that a tower rose in defiance. Now, you see the steel, the smoke, the solemn faces of a nation standing at the crossroads. It's no longer enough to know the sound of businesses fall, the splinters fly, the sound echoing into the silence of the night. You don't yet realize what this form of revelation speaks in the language of our culture. The generation of visual learners, physical wanderers, and image seekers can no longer claim ignorance. The warnings are no longer just declared from pulpits or printed on pages. They are drawn before your eyes, panel by panel, prophecies are visual. The same divine message now bears new promise. The world is shaken not just by words, but by sight. Long ago, in the days of before judgment, signs began to appear. They were not random events or isolated occurrences. They were harbingers. Each one carried a message, a warning, a call to turn back before it was too late. These signs followed a precise pattern, revealing the spiritual state of a nation that had once known God but had now turned away. But these harbingers were not just for the past. They are timeless, reappearing in the modern world with chilling accuracy, repeating the biblical pattern of warning before judgment. And now, in our own time, they have returned, one by one, sign by sign. There are 9 of them, 9 prophetic symbols, each tied to a specific moment in Israel's final days before destruction. Each has now reappeared in the context of America, a breach in national security. The fallen sycamore, a tower built higher in defiance, ancient words spoken again unknowingly by modern leaders, clay bricks, hewn stones, vows of defiance, cedars planted in pride. The pattern is not merely similar, it is exact, down to dates, places, and words. What happened to Israel before its fall is happening again. But now, it is not written on scrolls or locked in scholarly debates. It has come to life, visually, graphically, prophetically. The graphic novel pulls back the curtain on each of these 9 harbingers. It doesn't just mention them, it shows them. With vivid illustrations and emotionally charged scenes, the novel brings you into the moment. You see the breach as it happens, the collapse of the tower, the rise of another in its place. You feel the tension of a nation unaware that it is fulfilling ancient promise. You witness the utterance of a vow once spoken by a defiant people thousands of years ago, now repeated unknowingly by a modern nation word for word. The effect is jarring, unsettling, and yet undeniably real. Each harbinger is more than a symbol. It is a voice, a divine interruption in the affairs of men, a call to repent, to awaken, to return, and each one builds upon the last, forming a chain that points to its ending record. The graphic novel does not soften the message, it amplifies it. It allows you to see what was hidden, to connect the ancient with the modern, and to understand that these signs are not the result of change. They are part of a prophetic pattern. These 9 harbingers reveal the spiritual condition of a nation. They expose pride, defiance, and the refusal to return to the foundation. And they do it through events that have actually taken place, documented, verified, and now illustrated in haunting detail. The novel invites the viewer to see these events not as disconnected headlines from the past, but as harbingers pointing to the future. It places the viewer in the midst of the unfolding drama, asking not just what these signs mean for the nation, but what they mean for the individual. For if the harbingers have returned, then so too has the voice of warning. There is a generation that does not read the sacred scrolls, that no longer sits in reverence before words written in stone or parchment. A generation that scrolls past truth, that consumes in seconds what took centuries to preserve. Yet, despite the fading attention and the noise of modern life, the eternal Harbinger graphic novel was created not to entertain, but to pierce through the distractions. It meets this generation where it is, without compromising the power of the message. The prophetic call once sounded from mountaintops now emerges from illustrated pages. It shows what many have missed, that the harbingers are not relics of the past, but signs in the present, that the message is not outdated, but more urgent than ever. Every frame of this work has been crafted to carry weight, not just artistic beauty, but divine warning. The smoke rising from the ruins of judgment, the leaders standing proud with words they do not realize are ancient. The bricks, the trees, the towers, all of them presented not as mere symbols, but as living messages. There is no guessing, the connections are clear, the reality is undeniable, and with every page turned, the reader sees not just a story unfolding, but prophecy revealed. In a world where truth is often lost in translation, this visual form speaks louder than argument, clearer than debate. It bypasses resistance and opens the heart to receive. A young person who would never open a prophetic book might open a graphic novel, and in doing so, they will see what others refuse to see. They will feel the urgency. They will face the question, what does this mean for us now? The graphic novel does not merely tell the story of the nation, God is and in showing it, it holds up a mirror to our nation, our culture, and the hour is late. Watch will not stop. The warnings of God go unheeded. They do not vanish. They intensify. What begins as a whisper becomes a shout. What starts as a gentle menace becomes a signal. This is the hour we now find ourselves in the age of urgency, of strengthening, of divine reckoning. The harbingers that have appeared are not entertainment nor religious drama. They are warnings. They are signs from heaven that a threshold has been crossed, that the window of grace grows narrower with each passing day. And now, with the message being revealed not only through words, but through vivid imagery, there is no longer room for excuse. The call has gone forth. When a nation blessed by God turns away from Him, the consequences are not merely political or social. They are spiritual. Foundations crack, morality decays, and judgment begins to stir. The harbingers that have returned are not just messages, they are manifestations of a divine pattern. A pattern that unfolded in ancient Israel and is now being repeated with stunning precision in modern times. And yet, how many have noticed? How many have stopped long enough to discern the meaning behind the chaos? The shaking of a society is often the final break, a chance to wake up before it's too late. But this generation is asleep, distracted by noise, lulled into complacency, numbed by screens, and divided by voices that do not speak truth. And so the message has come again, but now in a form that bypasses the filters of indifference. The graphic novel does more than tell a story. It reveals the urgency in a language the modern soul can no longer ignore. The shaking is not theoretical, it is visual. You see the collapse, you feel the impact. The scenes stir the conscience and awaken the soul. This is not a call to fear, it is a call to decision. The harbingers are warnings given in mercy. Their purpose is not destruction, but redemption. They declare that it is not too late to return, not too late to turn the course of the nation. But that window will not remain open forever. History has shown what happens to nations that ignore such signs. And now, through illustrated prophecy, that history has come alive before us. No longer hidden in ancient ruins or theological texts, the warning now communicates shadow, fire, and light. The urgency of the hour demands more than counter belief. It demands action. It demands awakening. Each harbinger revealed is a question posed to the soul. Will you heed the warning, or will you continue on the path of defiance? The images in this novel are not just for storytelling, they are for summoning. To stir a nation, to shake a generation, to bring the reality of divine consequence to the forefront. The harbingers do not come without purpose. They come because time is running out. They come because God is not finished with this nation. They come because mercy still speaks, even at the edge of judgment. This is not just about a nation's destiny, it is about yours. The Harbingers do not merely speak to governments or empires. They speak to people, to individuals, to hearts that beat and souls that wander. When the signs return, they are not just collective, they are deeply personal. Each Harbinger is not only a warning to a land, but a question posed to every soul living within its borders. The question is not only what will happen to America, but what will you do in response to what is being revealed? The call of God does not fall into the void. It seeks a response. It searches for those who will hear and act. Judgment approached ancient Israel. People didn't believe it could happen. They assumed their power and prestige would protect them, but in their pride they missed the moment. The warnings came, but they were deceived. The signs were seen, but they were not. Now, in the unfolding of this modern prophetic revelation, the same pattern is emerging again. You are not meant to be a spectator. You are being called to become a participant. For witness, voice, in every generation, there are those who watch and those who act, those who speak and those who lie. The return of the Harbinger is not just a signal of national shaking. It is a divine summons to the remnant, those who will stand when it is. And that invitation reaches directly to you. You don't need a title. You don't need a platform. You need only a willing heart and courage to respond. The graphic novel does more than recount prophecy. It puts you in the center. Then you witness the scenes unfold. The bricks falling, the tower rising, the vows being declared. You must ask yourself, where am I in this picture? Am I among those who ignore the warning? Am I part of the problem or part of the answer? It is no accident that you are hearing this now, seeing this now. Every divine revelation carries with it a divine purpose. You are not here by chance. You are being chosen to respond. What would happen if just a few responded? If one heart turned, if one voice cried out, if one life was awakened to purpose. Throughout Scripture, it has never been the masses that turned the course of nations. It was the few, the ones who heard the call, the ones who wept for the brokenness, the ones who stood in the gap when no one else would. You can be that one. You can be the vessel through which light pierces the darkness. The Harbingers have come not to condemn, but to awaken. And those who are awakened are called to action. This is not about reading a story. It is about becoming part of it. It is about understanding that the future is not fixed, that repentance can still shift the course of history, and that the same God who sent the warnings is the God who also offers mercy, who waits for one person to rise up, to turn, to speak, to believe, to become the answer in a world that has forgotten how to ask the right question. There comes a moment in every prophetic unfolding when the veil must be lifted, when what was once hid is brought into the open. The mysteries long held in sacred texts, whispered by prophets, and hinted at through signs in the earth, are now being revealed to the light. The Harbinger graphic novel is not just a creative retelling, it is a revelation, a lifting of the veil, a visual unveiling of truth that demands a response. When something is revealed, there is no turning back. You have seen it, you know, and once you know, everything changes. The power of this revelation lies in clarity. Where once the message required deep study or years of spiritual seeking, now the truth breaks through the noise in full color and undeniable image. The reader no longer has to imagine what the Harbingers looked like. They see it. The destruction, the pride, the shaking, the rebuilding in defiance, it is all laid out, not in abstract symbolism, but in prophetic detail made visual, and this is not done for drama or for style. It is done because the time demands it. Because the hour is too late for subtlety, the message must now pierce the heart directly, and the veil must be torn away. This is a revelation designed not just to inform, but to confront. It forces you to see the world through the lens of eternity. Events that once seemed disconnected, political, economic, or natural, are shown to be deeply spiritual. Every harbinger connects heaven and earth. Every sign bridges the ancient past with the present moment. And through each frame, each page, the veil that once hid these connections is pulled back with precision. What was once seen as random is now understood as part of a divine pattern, a revelation that this generation desperately needs. But revelation brings responsibility. Once the veil is removed and truth is seen, there is no middle ground. You cannot return to blindness without a cost. You are faced with a decision to heed or to ignore, to awaken or to remain asleep. That is the burden and the beauty of revelation. It leaves no room for passivity. The images stay with you. The message lingers. A harbinger's echo not only in your mind, but in your spirit, calling you to examine your own life, your own nation, your own place in the unfolding of divine nature. And perhaps this is the very reason that the message was revealed in this form, to ensure it would not be forgotten, to ensure that even those who would never open a Bible or listen to a sermon would still encounter the truth. The veil is lifted not only from the faith, but from the skeptic, from the seeker, from the wise. The graphic novel So now the mystery has been revealed, the veil has been lifted. Harbingers have returned, not as relics of an ancient nation, but as living signs to a generation standing at the edge. What was once hidden in prophecy has now come alive in image, in word, in vision. The warnings are clear, the call is unmistakable. This is not just a story about a nation, it is about you. The same God who sent the signs, who allowed the shaking, who called out through the ages, is calling now. Not in condemnation, but in mercy, not to destroy, but to awaken. The time is late, the moment is critical. The question is not whether the harbingers have appeared. The question is how you will respond. Will you ignore the signs, or will you rise? Will you remain asleep, or will you return? The choice has always been yours, but now, with the truth revealed before your very eyes, that choice can no longer wait.